could it be true? Could really very surprising rumours that now Paramount is owned by Skydance and it's all signed off, it's all done, that Skydance Paramount are now planning to buy Warner Brothers? Really? Welcome to the Tachyon Pulse podcast.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
I'm going to first off say that this is actually a rumour I heard, I think it was about 2 months ago. I was talking to a lawyer that works within the industry, he's an entertainment lawyer, and we were talking about something else. And he just happened to say, have you heard this rumour about that once Skydance have bought Paramount, that they're planning to buy Warner Brothers? And I have to admit, I dismissed it. And I'd actually forgotten about this conversation. But I dismissed it. And my feelings was, and the source's feelings was as well, because he didn't think it was true either, was that the deal to buy Paramount wasn't done yet at the time. Warner Brothers is massively in debt. I think it had just been announced at that point that Warner Brothers was going to split back up again, and Discovery and the Warner Brothers studio sort of thing were going to split back up again. It's sort of like quite heavily TV on one side, which is so going bankrupt, and sort of cinema and things were on the other side. A lot of the studio space was on the other side. So I sort of said, look, Warner Brothers seem to be trying to put themselves into a position to be sold. I 100% agree with that. But I couldn't see that Paramount would do it. One, it's probably going to cost something like $30 billion. So initially I thought, well, they only paid $8 for Paramount. I don't see why that would happen. But also I couldn't see them sort of splitting their attention. Everybody that I've spoken to is telling me they've got an awful lot of work to do at Paramount to make it profitable again. They need to cut like $5 billion off their current expenditure. They need to sell a lot of property. They need to upgrade loads of their studio space. There's a lot to do. So I just couldn't see it. I just thought, that can't be true. But now, it seems to be leaking out more and more, and seems to be a lot of people paying attention to a rumour that actually they are. And now that the Paramount deal is signed off and is done, they are seriously going to look at Warner Brothers. So, could this be true? What would be the benefits and what would be the negatives to such a deal? Right, Warner Brothers is doing quite well at the cinema at the moment. That is fair to say. It's had a terrible run of movies, but at the moment, it's doing really well. There is massive debt. We don't actually know how the debt is sort of going to be split between the now two companies that they've reverted back to. But even though Warner Brothers are doing quite well at the moment, they are still laying off. There's still being redundancies. I would point out as well that Paramount are still doing redundancies even after the sale. David Ellison has basically said, look, there's going to be one more round of redundancies, but then that's it. So, the fact that Warner Brothers are making redundancies doesn't really surprise me. Hollywood is in a massive contraction at the moment. The studios are in a huge contraction. And obviously, there's massive debt. They need to try desperately to balance the books. And they've been doing loads of really creative ways of doing that. For example, they now produce TV shows for lots of other streaming providers and things, something I've spoken to loads of times, which is sort of a very low-risk way of making TV and movies. But if Paramount were to then buy Warner Brothers, they would be really on par then with Disney and Universal. They would become, up there with the top. They would become the top three of the studios. Warner Brothers has massive studio space, which is at a premium still in California. Something that they could, if Paramount bought it, sort of merge between the current studio space. A lot of the Paramount studio space is apparently quite old and needs massive upgrading. Warner Brothers is far more kept up with upgrading their studio space and their back lots. So you could see from a financial point of view and a production point of view, that would be very attractive for any studio. There is the point as well that I think I was watching John Campion and he talked about the streaming providers as a whole. And I'm actually going to go a bit further than what he said. But he pointed out that, look, Netflix is the top dog, 300 million. Next is Amazon, 200 and something million subscribers this is. And then it's Disney, 180, 120, I forget that it is, but it's just under Amazon. And then it's sort of Paramount, then it's sort of like Hulu and blah, blah, blah. HBO Max is fourth, sorry. So that is the point really, that if Paramount and HBO Max merged, that would basically make them the second highest, assuming they kept all those subscribers, it would make them the second most highest subscriber count. They'd be up above Amazon. I would actually go a little bit further though and actually point out that HBO Max isn't international yet. It's not everywhere. It's growing more and more every year as they go into more regions. But for example, in the UK, you can't get HBO Max. HBO Max sort of did a deal with Sky TV over here that HBO's sort of programs go straight onto Sky here in the UK. So we have no HBO Max. And we're obviously here in the UK quite a big market. So I could see actually that if Paramount Plus and HBO Max merged, that they could end those sort of deals with Sky, etc., which has been rumoured for a while, and get that bundle, something actually that David Ellison has already spoken about, making the streaming service more competitive by maybe having deals with other companies, and really becoming one of the dominant streaming providers internationally as well as at home in the United States. There are competition laws issue here. So Paramount is a smaller company to obviously Warner Brothers. It would really make them, if they did merge though, a massive studio. I actually think that there could be competition problems there, and we don't know what the current government sort of situation is because they're not behaving normally. The FCC with the Paramount merger, when Skydance bought it, that was not handled normally. Paramount basically had to pay Trump off, and then that deal was allowed to go through. But what I would say is, look at the Disney-Warner Brothers merger. That was allowed to go through. And that was two very big studios merging together. They really did then become a very dominant force within the studio industry. So maybe using that as a model, this could happen. Could Paramount afford the deal? Well, David Ellison and basically Skydance used Daddy's money, to be fair. His dad owns Oracle, a multi-billion-dollar company, so they have that revenue source. But also, it was co-funded by something called Red Kite, and that's actually a Saudi Arabian investment firm. So, I don't know if you know this, but Saudi Arabia's got quite a lot of money, and they like doing deals like this. They like doing things that are quite high exposure. That's why they like buying football teams and things as well. But they want to diversify as much of their finances as possible because they do understand that petrol is not exactly the future and that their existing revenue stream over a long term is only going to weaken. So they are using their current massive financial force to try to diversify as much as possible. So I actually don't think they would have a problem getting the $30 billion required to buy Warner Brothers. I think they wouldn't want to buy the TV side of things. I think they'd want to buy sort of the studio, movie. I think it's Discovery's on that side as well. They'd want to buy that side of the business. You could argue that currently Warner Brothers, this split, and then the redundancies, and again, I think John Campion made this point, it does look like that's what they're building towards doing. That's actually, they're trying to slimline their business, make it more attractive to a sale, and, basically put themselves out there. I think Warner Brothers basically is for sale. And don't get me wrong, I think that's sort of like a well-known secret sort of thing within the industry and something I've heard loads of times, and that this is what they're building towards. They need to split the company into two because nobody could afford to buy it on its own. But let's remember the massive debt. When you buy Warner Brothers, you're also buying the debt. Now, Skydance have not cleared Paramount's debt. So they've not come in with $16 billion and just gone to clear it. And to be honest, there's no business sense to do that. Actually, debt is a way all businesses operate. It doesn't really financially a lot of the time make sense to operate without debt. I know that's counterintuitive, but it's just the truth. So they've injected a certain amount of money to pay off a chunk of the debt to make it at a level where they can get better interest rates, etc., etc. Because Paramount's actual rating sort of thing within the industry is actually not good. So they are paying more on their interest rates than maybe they would like. And on $16 billion, that's significant. So Skydance are injecting some, but they're not clearing the debt. I think they would have to do the same with Warner Brothers if they took the business on. They would have to, again, inject probably about 13 or 14 billion dollars, depending on what the debt actually transfers with that side of the business is. But saying $20 billion of debt goes on the other side, I think they would need to get that debt at least halved. Basically, to again get it to a level where the interest rates are better, and then you have that operating debt, which is fine, but it's within your manageable day-to-day business. So yeah, I could see that. The more I think about this, the more I think it is a practical solution. But I still don't think it'll happen now. I cannot see that they would go into another business that needs massive streamlining, massive injection of cash, etc., when they still haven't managed Paramount. I just feel that Skydance is going from a very small company and jumping to one of the biggest studios in the world is, let's say, ambitious. But you could argue that Dave Ellison is ambitious. And you could argue that Skydance buying Paramount in the first place was very ambitious. Warner Brothers is a business that is struggling and is likely to be up for sale. So maybe. It's not something I actually see as a reality. But if Warner Brothers is really up for sale, maybe Dave Ellison and his partners would just consider that a possibility that is just too good to refuse. Sometimes in business, these things happen. A business will come up for sale and you take the opportunity. But how many businesses have you heard overstretch themselves and it ends up failing because of that? It's happened within the industry, the entertainment industry, loads of times. They'd have to do this very carefully. But the way they're managing the Paramount sale does seem to be careful. They seem to be doing the right things with that business, but only time will tell. For me, they only just bought Paramount. It was finalised literally a couple of weeks ago. This isn't something I see happening. But we'll see what the next maybe 12 months brings us, because again, any sale to Warner Brothers won't be quick anyway. But guys, get into the comments on what you think. Could you see this like super bundle between HBO Max, Paramount Plus being something you would go for? If they put it all on one server, for example, they could do both for less. Instead of doing, £10 each for them, £20 bundle, they could do it for like $15 or £15 and combine those two things so you actually get both for a little bit cheaper. That tends to be what happens with like when Disney bought Hulu, etc., and merged them. So that's a very distinct possibility. Could be interesting. Between them, Warner Brothers and Paramount own some of the biggest IP out there. So again, would you think that is a very interesting possibility? We could get crossovers between the two. Guys, get into the comments and think if you're going to get like a Warner Brothers thing and a Paramount thing that you maybe see crossover. You never know. I'd really love you guys to just get in the comments and tell me exactly what you think about this deal, because I am still leaning towards that it's not true, or that it at the very least won't happen. But with the more people talking about it, seems to be gathering pace. Get into the comments. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, with the bell notification. It really helps us out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can become a member and get to see a lot of these videos before everybody else. Go check that out. I've just realised my camera's wonky. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.